At the outset, I'd like to thank Minister Vivian Balakrishnan for inviting me over today, and I'm so very happy to have our delegation here. But it is important for me to announce that, unfortunately, plans for my Prime Minister to undertake an official visit to Singapore tomorrow has to be postponed. One, because of the current focus that he has to address the rising COVID numbers in Malaysia. And secondly, a lot of the discussions between the two Prime Ministers, we were hoping, Vivian and I, will revolve around the gradual resumption of cross-border travel and the ease of movement between our citizens. And our hope was that it could have been decided at the very highest levels between the two Prime Ministers during my Prime Minister's official visit tomorrow. But bearing in mind the current COVID situation, it doesn't provide the right environment for both Prime Ministers to discuss that particular matter. And we have to stress that it is very challenging for both sides to come up with a concrete and safe solution on cross-border movements at the moment, and also to frame what we could announce to the public. So we both felt that it will be much more opportune for the two Prime Ministers to meet slightly on a later date, on a more appropriate time when we can announce this very important and much awaited decisions by both countries. Notwithstanding, Vivian and I will continue with our negotiations. I do not need to go into detail, but cross-border movements, I'm happy to announce together with Vivian that the death and critically emergency visit arrangements have been concluded, and we hope to implement it by the 17th of May this month. It will require the agencies to finalize certain details. Reciprocal green lane was discussed earlier together. The periodic commuting arrangements were also discussed. Air travel bubble requires further negotiations with the transport ministries on both sides. Mutual recognition of vaccination certificates. Recognition digitally is underway, and MySejahtera, Trace Together, needs to be compatible, and we hope that by the time that the two Prime Ministers meet, whether at the end of the year during the informal meeting, or maybe if time or situation permits earlier for Tan Sri Muhyiddin to be able to make a visit, official visit to Singapore. Finally, the both of us discussed the situation in Myanmar, what was achieved in Jakarta recently by the leaders of ASEAN, and how we have to make sure that the 5 points that have been agreed upon continues to be worked on, engagement with all the relevant stakeholders. We were very pleased with the outcome in Jakarta, but still a lot of work still needs to be done in finding the way forward with regards to what has been unfolding in Myanmar.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vivian.
Thank you, Hisham. Let me first say how glad I am to welcome Dr. Hisham to Singapore. This is his first official visit as the Foreign Minister of Malaysia. The second point I want to make is that I understand the reasons for the postponement of Prime Minister Muhyiddin's visit to Singapore. I think given the very volatile nature of the COVID situation on both sides, it makes sense to focus primarily on the domestic control of the pandemic, whilst Dr. Hisham and myself continue to do our homework on the parameters for the schemes that can be announced later. As far as today is concerned, I think Dr. Hisham has already announced that we've settled the details for the compassionate travel scheme, and that will begin on the 17th of May. This is a scheme which is really needed because of the extensive ties of kinship between Malaysia and Singapore. Parents, grandparents, uncles, aunties, cousins, and when family crises occur, people want to get together. And therefore, bearing in mind this very special close relationship between the people of Singapore and the people of Malaysia, it is necessary to have schemes like this. So we'll announce further details on the types of tests and quarantine arrangements which will be necessary in order to operationalize this scheme. Work is also going on the mutual recognition of health certificates. This is with respect to vaccination records and PCR test records. That's well underway at a technical level. And again, all this is preparation for the future when the situation improves in both Malaysia and Singapore and travel can liberalize further than where it is now. Another point worth emphasizing is that if you look back over the past 1 year, no matter how bad things got, either in Malaysia or in Singapore, we have never completely closed the borders. Our essential supply chains, the lorries delivering important medication, food, other supplies, have continued to flow. And that's why, for instance, you know that we have also made the extra effort to vaccinate the Malaysian truck drivers, and this is something which I discussed beforehand with you and I got your agreement for. These are examples, again, of the very special relationship between Malaysia and obviously especially Johor and Singapore, and why we have to continue to make special arrangements for this special relationship to continue even in times of crisis. So all in all, I'm very glad that you're here to welcome you back to Singapore. We've known each other for 2 decades, and I can assure you we will continue to work very closely. And even as the COVID-19 pandemic continues to challenge both our countries, rest assured we will work very closely together. We will support each other, and our people-to-people ties will be protected and will be nurtured. Thank you all very much.